Hey, welcome back to the Sacred Souls podcast. I'm Ariel, and today I'm sharing something deeply personal that I think will resonate. Well, I feel like I'm always sharing something deeply personal, but I feel like this will resonate with a lot of you, especially if you've ever felt like you can't quite settle anywhere, or if you notice the same patterns showing up in your life over and over again. So let's get into it. I've been living nomadically since February and just constantly moving and never really have been able to settle down in my life. And for the longest time, I thought this was just like me being a free spirit and like an Aquarius moon and rising and just wanderlust. But recently this was probably like a month and a half ago, I was getting these intuitive messages that it's time to ground down and to find a home base. So before I can do that, I knew that I had to understand really what was driving this restlessness, because here's the thing, like wherever you go, there you are. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And so if I have unhealed trauma around the concept of home, then I could move to the most beautiful place in the world and still feel unsettled. So I set an intention for my most recent mushroom journey to find and clear the root cause of this pattern so that I wouldn't like move somewhere new and then just like have this happen all over again. So what came through completely blew my mind and changed everything about how I understand my relationship to home and safety for the better. So let me set the scene for you for my intention. I literally have moved probably like 100 times in my life, like maybe not 100, but pretty close to it. So the idea of home has always felt so troublesome to me. I get restless and I feel like this urge to leave, this urge to keep moving, even if I'm somewhere beautiful and like things are going well. I just feel like I never can get settled. And like even in my last apartment that I had, I didn't even really like decorate it. Like I put up at my desk, I put up a picture and like I kind of decorated that area because that's really where I would sit. But other than that, like I didn't have a couch. And I used to have a couch, but I had gotten rid of it because I had moved into a studio. And then when I moved into a one bedroom, I was just like, I'm not getting a couch. And it wasn't even because I was trying to be cheap. It was because I just felt I just don't want things that will like make me settle, like settle into something. And so I know that, well, I've heard since then that not decorating your apartment is a trauma response. So all these things are tracking that me, and the thought of home is definitely an issue. So, I mean, and then it came to the point where if you followed me for a while, you'll know, or maybe not if you haven't, but in February, I put all my stuff in storage and I've been just living nomadic with my dog since then. So that is literally, and one of the reasons why I did that is because I mean, there were several reasons, but one of the biggest ones is that I felt like I didn't want to live where I was living anymore, but I didn't know where to go. And I felt like any change would be better than that. And I didn't want to just like pick a random place. So I was like, let's just travel. So, with all of that being said, about almost 6 months into me bouncing around constantly, I just started getting these intuitive, strong hits that it was time to ground down and to create some stability. But I had this knowing that if I didn't heal whatever was underneath this pattern first, that I was just going to recreate the same restlessness wherever I landed. So I did go into this journey with a very clear intention. And I basically just said, show me the root cause of my inability to settle and please help me clear it. And I was ready to go deep and ready to see whatever needed to be seen. And of course, if you have done mushroom journeys before or if you haven't, just know that you never know what will come up in them. And I've mentioned this in other podcast episodes, but the way I do it is with a facilitator in a retreat center, and it's just me, her, and my dog. And my eyes are closed the entire time because it's an inward journey. So it's not the kind of mushroom journey where I'm just out in nature, as much as that sounds nice. When I'm just like out in nature, like frolicking. It's very intentional, it's very inward, and it's very intense, but the benefits that I've seen so far have been definitely worth it. So when I first started the journey, what happened next was unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. The mushrooms took me into what was clearly a past life. I couldn't exactly tell where I was to name it, but I was a young girl, and I don't really know how old, but I had this intuitive knowing that something terrible was going to happen to my village, and I tried to warn everyone, and no one believed me. I don't know why, but they didn't believe me. And so then everyone in the village ended up dying. And so whatever I had sensed came to pass. And they showed me that I was hiding in a well. So I don't know what how everyone died specifically. I kind of feel like maybe there was a fire or something, but I don't know. I was hiding in a well, and that's what they showed me. So the mushrooms just made me feel the weight of that grief and that survivor's guilt and that complete and utter aloneness. And also, the way the mushrooms work is they'll bring up certain emotions and certain traumas, so that you can feel it. And then after you feel it fully, then it does clear out. But it's like you have to feel it first. So fortunately and unfortunately, that's what I had to sit through. And so after losing everyone, I had no community, no family, no home, and I just wandered and I roamed around by myself eventually until I just died of exhaustion, like completely alone. And the grief I felt during this part of the journey was so intense. I was hysterically crying and feeling like I just kept being like, I feel so alone, and just feeling the weight of what that young girl had experienced. And it's just sad to know that, I mean, that happened to anyone. Obviously, that's a sad story, but to be like, oh, that's what I went through, like, that's unfortunate and just, yeah, really sad. So then the mushrooms showed me the connection to this lifetime. So that was the groundwork. So when I was 12 in this life, my parents were already divorced, and I was just living with my mom at this time. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I had heard someone like break into my house. Like I heard someone slowly walking up the stairs, and it was to the point where it woke me up. Like that's literally why I woke up. So I woke up my mom. Like I was terrified. I ran into my mom's room and I told her, someone's in the house. Like you have to call the police. And she just yelled at me. She was like, what are you talking about? Go back to bed, which seems kind of extreme now when I think about it. I'm like, why was I being yelled at for that? But she didn't believe me. And the mushrooms showed me that it was in that moment that because I knew there was danger and that my mom didn't believe me, it unlocked that past life trauma. And so that pattern of knowing that something, like trying to warn people and not being believed, just all came flooding back. And they said that that trauma has been running the show around home ever since. So every time I start to settle somewhere, some part of me remembers that home isn't safe and I can't trust what I know and just all of that. And then I'll end up being alone. And I mean, this was, of course, not conscious whatsoever, but this was all of the underlying trauma that you can see now can really run your life in crazy ways. So here's where it gets really interesting. The mushrooms showed me that most of what I thought I wanted in a home wasn't actually what I wanted at all. It was what that past life version of me was looking for before she died, which was a super quiet place where I could rest and I could just finally feel safe. But that wasn't apparently my authentic desire. That was my trauma talking, and that was an unhealed wound trying to get its needs met through my current life choices. And I just thought it was so sad / poetic that that's what I've been doing this entire time, was trying to find a place that she, just trying to meet her needs, her dying needs. Another thing that I just want to mention that was like really crazy is that in my mushroom journey before this one, at the end of it, I was like, okay, like where should I go next? What's on the horizon? Any places where I should go to look to see where I want to live eventually? And they told me to go to green and lush places. And so I thought that they meant, okay, that's where I should look to settle down. So I literally listened to them and I started exploring green and lush places because obviously I already do like places like that. They were beautiful and had never been to most of these places before. So I'm like, okay, this sounds good. So I just kind of blindly trusted the guidance and my intuition and all of that. So I went to all of these places, and it wasn't until I went there to all of these green and lush places that I started to feel that exhaustion and to feel like I could actually rest. And what they told me in this journey is they were like, we actually told you to go there on purpose because we knew that if you were in that kind of environment, your past life version, your soul would feel safe enough to finally heal this wound. And I was like, okay, so you tricked me? And they were like, no, we don't want you to think of it as we tricked you. We want you to show you how much universal support you have and how much help you have. And that it's hard to explain, I guess, because they were speaking this to me word for word how I'm telling you, but they were also showing me these visuals. But of course, the visuals in a mushroom journey aren't always easy to explain, but they were showing me basically kind of like a universe and just showing me how all these things are working behind the scenes constantly and to help you, even though you might not know that it's going on. So I think that message is just really beautiful. And really important for everyone to know, because it's not just me that has universal help, it's everyone. Please just know that people always say, oh, the universe has your back. And obviously we want to believe that. And I do think that anyway. But this just showed me even more so how much universal help we truly have. So eventually during this journey, we did clear all of this. The guilt, from being the only survivor, the feeling that I didn't deserve a home or safety. And I even found out that I had a receiving block that had been created because subconsciously I felt guilty that everyone had died and that I hadn't. And so they were telling me in the journey that that's one of the reasons why, too, that I didn't feel like I even deserved a home, is because of what happened in that past life. Here is what I think is such an important part, that the mushrooms, literally, they made a point to tell me to share this with you. So the mushrooms showed me this incredible visual about how trauma affects our growth, and they showed me how naturally our lives grow and branch out like a tree or a plant, or just think of roots. So think of this line of like a root or a tree branch growing, and then how it splits off, but it keeps going into kind of different fractals and stuff. They were showing me how, there's this organic expansion and evolution that happens. But when we have trauma, especially past life trauma, it's like one of those branches splits off, but then it just stops growing in the area. Like, I'm not saying everywhere in your life, but they're talking about this specific area wherever you have this specific trauma. And so instead of continuing to evolve and expand, they showed me you literally just keep hitting a wall over and over again. They literally showed me a visual of just walking into a wall over and over again, and the same patterns, the same triggers, the same limitations. And this will keep happening until we consciously heal it. And the trauma will keep showing up. They'll keep creating the same circumstances, the same feelings, the same blocks, until we finally address it at the root. So once you clear it, though, that growth can continue, and you'll be free to evolve and expand in ways that were blocked before. And I know that this maybe sounds like common sense, like, okay, obviously if we have trauma, it's going to keep showing up in our lives, but it was the way they showed me that, to me, was new. They just had me understand it in such a unique way, because they just were showing me how it's literally coming up to be healed. The reason why it keeps being repeated over and over again is because it's trying to show you, please heal this. You haven't healed it yet. You haven't healed it yet. So I think just looking at it in that way is good feedback and good information, instead of just being a victim to it. It's more like, oh, let me look in my life and see where these reoccurring patterns keep happening, because it's trying to show me that that actually does need to be addressed and it does need attention. So how this can apply to you, look at the patterns in your own life that keep repeating, like I was saying, and maybe it's relationships, maybe you keep attracting the same type of partner or having the same conflicts, maybe it's money, maybe you hit the same financial ceiling over and over again, or maybe it's even health issues that won't resolve no matter what you try. But these recurring patterns are like that split branch that I was talking about. Something gets stuck until it's healed, and then until you heal it, you'll just keep hitting that same wall. So sometimes the root is in this lifetime, and maybe it's an early childhood experience that created a belief or a trauma response, but sometimes, like in my case, it goes even deeper than that. And sometimes we're carrying wounds from other lifetimes that get triggered by events in this one, and that's okay. It doesn't matter how old the wound is, it can still be healed. And that is something that I help people with in my sessions, and this is something that the mushrooms have helped me be able to do even more so for people, because I'm seeing how things work now from such an expanded consciousness. So if this is something that you need help with, this is definitely something that I am able to do. I'm able to see where the root cause of whatever trauma is from. I'm able to see the past life. I'm able to see it in this life, and we can clear it. And that's why I thought it was actually so cool that this happened in my mushroom journey, because this is actually what I do for other people. And to have it done for me at this level it was just really nice to receive. So one of the reasons why I have not really posted on social media in the past month and not recorded my podcast in the past 2 months almost is because one of the themes in this mushroom journey was they told me how exhausting I've been making everything. And I honestly didn't feel physically tired at all, but they made me feel so incredibly tired, because they said not only from a soul level have I been carrying a lot, they just said that I do everything on my own, and I just carry so much, and since I haven't been receiving a lot too, since I had that block, so they just said I needed to rest. So they forced me, they literally made me feel, because and I'm not saying they made me, but the mushrooms will bring out and activate things physically so that you can go through that and clear it. And so that night I slept for 12 hours. And then the rest of like the next few weeks, I was just so incredibly exhausted and all I could do was rest, even though at first I was fighting it. But I finally gave in. And then after that, I came to Sedona for a month to just ground down and rest and integrate. And so it's been pretty heavy since the mushroom journey, but I'm coming out of it right now. And also just some other things that were going on. My dog, a week or two after the mushroom journey, I was in Boise and I found out that my dog had a cancer tumor. So that was one of the reasons why we came to Sedona, was so that she can have surgery, because I used to live here and so I have a vet here that I like. So that's all taken care of, which is great. And then also Pluto has been on my moon, and if you know anything about astrology, if you don't, Pluto is a planet of death, transformation, and rebirth, and it's on my moon, which is my emotions and the most inner part of me. So it's just been bringing up and making me face like the deepest, darkest things to transmute. And doing that in Sedona has been really great, but also heavy. So in just a few days, I'm leaving here and I feel like I'll finally be back in society and I can continue the integration more in real life, since I feel like I've been integrating it in this paused state. So I haven't fully seen all of the results from this journey yet because we cleared something so incredibly deep. The other two journeys I did, I saw results immediately because the first one was clearing emotional issues and depression and just all these things like that. So that's really easy to see the results immediately. And then the second journey I did was about the gut issues that I had, and we did clear that. And so that's obviously really easy to see because at first you have gut issues and then you don't. But this one is definitely more nuanced, and I would say the biggest thing, though, that I did notice immediately was that it made me feel immediately afterwards that I needed to settle down. Like I didn't feel like I wanted to be nomadic anymore. I didn't feel that restless feeling, that panic. It completely cleared that. So I am slowly working on where I want to settle down, and I'm not sure yet. But since this journey, the whole relationship to home has shifted, and I still want a quiet place, but I'm no longer looking for like a super quiet place that's isolated where I can hide or anything like that. I'm looking for a community, connection, and for a place where I can really be seen and supported. Another thing they said in the journey was that I've always like been supporting communities and that now I need to be supported. So the restlessness has calmed significantly, and for the first time in my life, the idea of settling down doesn't feel threatening. It actually feels exciting. This is the power of getting to the root cause instead of just treating symptoms. Like I could have forced myself to stay in one place, but I would have been miserable, and I could have kept moving forever, but I never would have found what I was actually looking for. If this story resonates with you, and if you're recognizing any patterns in your own life that seem to have roots that you can't quite reach, again, just know that this is the kind of work that I do with clients, and sometimes our current struggles make perfect sense when we understand the full picture, including what we might be carrying from other lifetimes. And the beautiful thing about this work is that once you clear these deep patterns, you're free to create something completely new. You're not doomed to repeat the same cycles forever. So I'd love to hear from you. What patterns have you noticed in your life, or what walls do you keep hitting? So either send me a DM, leave a comment, because sometimes just recognizing the pattern is the first step towards healing it. So thank you as always for listening. And until next time, trust your intuition, trust your journey, and know that whatever you're carrying can be healed.